Hello, I'm Forrest Shaw, and I've got a problem. Great singing voice, I've been told, by many people, whom I can only assume are telling the truth. So, yeah, here we are, another podcast. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing, rating, commenting. If you haven't done that yet, go ahead and rate and comment. Throw some comments on YouTube and Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever you're listening to on. Also, please recommend this podcast to other people if you think they will enjoy it, no matter what is going on in their life. Addict, not an addict, friend of an addict, married to an addict, just a normal person that has no addictions. I don't care. Please recommend it to them. I really think that it is enjoyable, interesting to anybody, especially the route we're starting to go. We're really trying to start finding the footing here. That sentence doesn't make sense. We're really finding the footing here of this podcast where I think people are sharing a lot of personal, intimate details about their life and their addiction. And I think that that is interesting to anybody. And also the general themes of the podcast are helpful to anybody. I'm also going to start having doctors and scientists and different people like that on as well. So please tell other people if you think they'll be interested. Speaking of scientists, somebody left a comment on one of the clips I put out with Andy Haynes about the cocaine and the rat study, and that the cocaine, there was a study where rats were given the option of food or cocaine and they chose the cocaine. And she is a person that apparently reads a lot of studies, someone that's listened to the podcast, I hope. Maybe they just saw the clip. And said that she thinks we got the studies confused, and we did. I looked it up. Turns out rats would go for the food over the cocaine, but the point Andy was making about choosing the cocaine over the socialization still held true, and that was the point he was making. So the point still holds true. Just some of the information that was given out about it beforehand was a little bit off, which you can expect on a podcast where I have a lot of comedians on. But as a scientist, I always like to get things right. So that study was a little bit misrepresented. Not a little bit, I'd say a lot. But the point still holds true. If you have donated money, thank you for doing that. There is a donate button on my website, forrestshaw.net. And if you go there, you can also see my upcoming shows. I have a new segment today. I don't know what I'm going to call it yet. Probably like passing the buck, blaming somebody else, but I'm going to have on Slayton Shaw. That is the man that donated the sperm to make me. That's a weird way to put it. My dad. And here he is. Okay, I'm here with Slayton Shaw, who is my dad. I don't think you have any podcasts or social media or any upcoming specials, so you get nothing to promote except to be on there.
Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason I had you on here is that we had a big gap where we hadn't communicated with each other for many years. And then when I first reached out to you and we started talking, you had mentioned gambling to me. And I wanted to revisit that with you because there is a lot of talk about whether addiction is genetically passed on or if it's just something that is to the individual. So what didn't you did mention something to me about gambling, right?
I mentioned to you that the last time I ever placed a bet was 1977. But that was when I was about 31 years old. In 1977, I left Miami and moved to Vegas. And I had some high school friends that were, one was a Texas Hold'em dealer and one was a craps table dealer. I just sat at a Texas Hold'em table during the week, and on weekends would go into the sports bar there at the Union Plaza Hotel, which I don't think is there anymore. It was at the end of the old Vegas Strip, whatever that was called.
No, I don't think it's there anymore. No,
they tore it down, I'm certain. But we gamble on football, and it doesn't matter, college, pro, didn't matter. No basketball, no baseball. But I was there mainly in the football season during the 6 months I was there. And the worst and the last bet I ever made was betting against the Miami Dolphins, believe it or not. And it was Thanksgiving. The Dolphins had played the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday, but they were also going to be playing Thanksgiving Day, which was 3 days away, which meant that they weren't going to be able to fly back to Miami. They had to stay in the Midwest. They didn't come home. They had to practice, walk through practice, whatever they were going to do. And I knew that they were spent from that Cincinnati game. And they were playing the Cardinals, who were in St. Louis at the time. And so I didn't bet the spread or anything. I just did the straight up bet. I bet $700 for Miami to lose.
Which was
And
what, $2 million back then? $700. What was $700 back then? 2 million.
It was a lot of money, yeah. Back in '77, it was a lot of money. And so I watched the game on Thanksgiving Day. Miami won the game, 55-7. It was the worst bet I'd ever made, And I would just figure that they were going to not be back with families. They were going to be on the road in hotels the whole time they were there, and which trains players, being in a hotel.
You put yourself into the mind of a professional athlete, which you're not.
I wish I was not, no.
Yeah.
But so I went into some hotel to eat Thanksgiving dinner by myself, and it was a high-rise hotel or something. I was on like the 17th floor or whatever the top floor was. I said, I'm just going to jump off the fucking building. Can I say fucking?
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm just going to jump off the fucking building. But I ate my Thanksgiving dinner, and I was looking out the window, and I could see down the New Vegas Strip. And I said, wow, that's pretty. I don't think I want to sully this scene. So I just didn't do it. It was the last time I ever placed a bet, sports bet, gambling bet, card bet, highlight bet.
You haven't been to Las Vegas recently. A dead body on a sidewalk would be an upgrade for a lot of parts of.
I didn't want people walking over me. Is what I.
You haven't gambled since that bet. You don't have any urges. You've never had any urges to do it, or
no. I mean, I was in a March Madness basketball pool with 3 other people, but the prize was a hamburger, and second place was an ice cream cone.
So buying an ice cream cone is not going to ruin your life.
No, that's about $2.59. So.
Yeah. So, because when you brought it up when we were that conversation years ago, it just clicked in my head. I was like, oh, you're a gambling addict. That's why I'm a gambling addict. So, I was hoping to be able to blame this on you, but it doesn't seem like you're an addict, really.
I can blame it on Miami. You grew up in Miami. You had to start gambling when you were in Miami, right?
I didn't do any highlight or anything like that. I didn't really, I gambled. The first time I remember gambling was with your dad. Was playing cards at his house and for matchsticks and pennies. I talked about it last podcast, I think. And I remember that being, and that seems innocent, but in my brain, I remember that being important to me when I look back at it.
How old?
I don't know, 8 or 9, but it was mostly matchsticks. Honestly, it wasn't really money, but I just remember being drawn to that feeling. I was hoping to have you on here, and you'd be like, "Yeah, gambling addict, blah blah blah," and then I'd just blame it on you, and then I'd be good. But I think what I've learned is it doesn't. Even if you would have said that, I don't know. I guess it's still all about yourself. I think
that was in the genes or something like that. But
yeah, but I think in the end, it's just how you deal with it. It's.
I think it's the environment you're in, and I just felt like it was the environment we were in because I was an avid water skier, and my wife's father at the time had a ski boat that he let us use.
When you say your wife's father, you mean my mom and grandfather?
Yeah, your mom and Papa.
Are you saying this for the people listening? Okay.
What would you say?
You said my wife's father had a ski boat. I go, I think that was my grandfather you're talking about.
Yeah. I should have said, yeah, your mom.
Yeah.
Her dad, Donald, Pacu.
Yeah. What did the ski boat have to do with anything?
Well, it's just we were on the water a lot, and you were living the Miami scene, and part of the Miami scene on Saturday night was going to Highlight.
Oh, yeah.
That was
I never
fun.
went.
Yeah,
I never went. I
I
wouldn't
went.
even. That didn't even seem fun to gamble on. Just throwing
I
balls
think
at
I
the
went.
wall.
I think I went to the dog track one time and
Yeah.
never lost a bet, and
Okay.
that did not spur me to go back on. But
Yeah. See, I don't know. I don't think you're a gambling addict. I don't know. I'm not going to blame you right now, man. I'll think about it. Maybe I'll blame you down the line or something like that. But for
yeah,
now, I'll let you off that. I'll blame you for other things, but not that. So,
yeah, yeah.
all right. Well, I appreciate your time. We'll
Okay.
do this again in about 6 months when I think of something else to try and blame you
Yeah.
for, and yeah, we'll go from there. That was Slayton Shaw. So I guess I can't officially blame him for being an addict. I'll figure out a way. All right, moving on with this episode. Let's welcome our main guest today. We're going to be talking about a subject that often gets overlooked in addiction. And let's meet John Hastings. All right, I'm here today with comedian John Hastings. You can find him at his website at the John Hastings. Also, he has a podcast called The Wrestler. What is it called? Remind the Wrestler's Review.
Wrestler Review, baby.
Wrestler Review. And he has released 8 specials in the last 10 months. So there's tons of comedy content at his YouTube channel at The John Hastings. I believe everything is The John Hastings, Instagram, and very convenient for you. So go to his YouTube channel, check out the hours and hours of comedy he's got there, and listen to his podcast. And thanks for being here today, John.
Forrest, thank you. And I also like when podcast hosts match their name to their background. If I was being accurate, I guess I'd have to be coming from a toilet or in the lap of a man who pays for a prostitute.
Wait, is that what Hastings is? Hastings?
That's John.
Oh.
You're not Sadler Shaw, you son of a bitch. What are you talking about?
I knew John was toilet. I was trying to think of haste, like the word haste, and then something with haste, and then I was, what is a hasting? A guy, and I was like, oh, of course, it's John. I'm an idiot.
I'm not sure of the lineage of my name. My grandfather, who, full disclosure, a bit of a drinker, did one time turn to me and go, I think what happened was a guy from Scandinavia did some crimes, made his way to England, got on a boat to Canada. When asked his name, he looked at the port and went, Hastings. Because there is no English DNA in us whatsoever. I don't think he did a 23andMe. I think he was literally just guessing based off of having a gin with dinner. And then, so that's the supposed story of my last name.
All right. Well, the same question I ask all my guests. What's your problem?
Gassiness. And in the case of this podcast, I was a King Hell cigarette smoker for, oh my God, many years, 15, 16 years. And we're talking, lie to myself, half pack a day. We're probably a pack a day for about 10 of those years. Like, I went for it. Real smoking. None of this vaping bullshit. Cigarettes.
Now, I want to say I am looking forward to talking about cigarettes as an addiction because I like gambling, and even more so than gambling. I think cigarettes are kind of minimized as an addiction in society, or like normalized, you know.
The thing with gambling and smoking, I think is also very similar, is and people don't know. If you have a drinking problem, people can figure it out. Like, it's pretty like, as you get older, you can, like, I can point them out. I'm like, booze bag. It's just the perk of being a stand-up comedian is you literally and figuratively can smell them. Like, you're just like,
Same thing with drug addicts. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, it's very funny. A friend of mine was like, oh, I think this person is having a mental breakdown. And I was like, or they're on coke. And they were like, they're not on coke. And I was like, okay. And I just went like, they do it. And I like ran through the things and they're like, yeah, like a manic person. Or I was like, yeah, what's interesting about mania is it presents a lot more often than being on coke. They're on coke. And then it turned out they were on coke and I was not vindicated. And I did want a cigarette after that conversation, but I didn't have one.
Well, so another thing is, if you were like walking into a 7-Eleven and someone's like, yo, can I get a cigarette? You might give them a cigarette versus someone's like, hey, can I get a bump of cocaine? Or, can you get me some beer while you're in there? You'd be like, fuck off, you know? Like,
It is very fascinating that COVID, one of the things we don't talk about with COVID is COVID, like, lack of a better term, smoked smoking. Like, so I quit in COVID. So many people quit in COVID. And what I think it was that, like, if you break up COVID into like COVID 1, COVID 2, but COVID 2020, pre-vaccine, like that whole period of time, I smoked my face off. It was like there was nothing to do. I was not one of those people that was like, well, I'm going to try and get my career going on the internet. I played video games by myself in my apartment, trying to figure out if I should go to Canada to be with my now ex-wife. And I smoked cigarettes. My only interactions was I was walk to the corner store at the end of my street, and I would talk about baseball with the two guys that worked at that store. Full disclosure, I know nothing about baseball, but I just figured out they thought I did because I was wearing a Dodgers cap one day and a Blue Jays cap the next. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to read some Wikipedia about the Dodgers as I walk to get cigarettes every morning. And that's what I did. And that's like my big favorite moment of smoking. I was like, that was good. That kept me tethered somewhat to society.
Yeah.
It gave me something to do. The opposite side of it was the never stopping feeling that you're dying because you always have a headache. You always have a headache, and you don't realize you have a headache until you quit. Your eyes hurt all the time, or my eyes hurt all the time, and your penis doesn't work as good. Those are the three things that they need to stress more with smoking. It's like, hey, you have a headache all the time. You don't
Yeah, the
realize
penis one I've never really heard. There's like a performance issue type thing.
Not performance, but it's like, how do I say this? If non-smoking it's at a 10, smoking it's at an 8. Like it's an ever
Really?
subtle difference. Yeah.
What is it something to do with blood flow and the thickness of your blood from the
It's purely blood flow, because basically what you're doing with you're choking yourself and putting a bunch of stimulants in your body at the same time. So it's just gunning your heart. You're having, you have like 40 head rushes a day.
Yeah, I know it thickens your blood. I know, because I remember reading that. My mom smoked, and I was like trying to get her to quit, and so I was like just reading about the science of it and how your blood will thicken because it produces more of the God, I can't remember the words. There's something that bonds the oxygen in your blood. And anyways, it has to produce more of those because the smoking is taking that away, the carbon monoxide. But
I think it's also very interesting approaching cigarette smokers about how much they smoke, because no one's honest. If you're seeing someone smoke 4 cigarettes in a day, they've had another 5 or 6. Like they're adding on to it. They're never sort of honest with the number. But also the excuses and reasons are crazy. I need them. I just want, like, for me, I literally was like, what do I do with my hands? I need a break from people.
Yeah.
What I also realized was I more respected my levels of anxiety. So it's just like, hey, I really hate parties, so I'm just going to go to less parties.
Yeah, but before we go, I just want to say, before we move on, like, people wrote to me. Since I've been doing this podcast about cigarettes, I've had a couple people write to me, and because I think I mentioned in one of the podcasts, and quitting cigarettes. Like, I just kind of like flippantly said it, but I also just want to stress that, like, just in the past couple of months have come, and I know cigarettes are an addiction. I know they're tough to quit, but I did really just lump it into the group like that. I think a lot of people do. Forget gambling. There's other addictions like love addiction or, shopping, spending, things like this, things that people, I'm sure, just casually are like, fuck those people. Like, that's not real. But I think this is a good way to show people, like, hey, not to minimize these types of things. I mean, my strange addiction, those things, eating rocks, that's a different story. Maybe I think that's kind of like maybe like a mental disorder more than an addiction. But yeah,
I think if you break down, any sort of addiction is a symptom of a larger problem. I was smoking because I was never dealing with a huge amount of social anxiety. There was also a bunch of stuff in my life. Smoking is a great distraction. I need to go confront this person about this, but first I'm going to have 3 cigarettes and settle down. And then you get into a spiral of not dealing with the problem. It's a really good way to do something that's nothing. Smoking and getting into conspiracy theories are very similar. There's all the feeling of accomplishment, but you've done literally nothing. You've risked nothing. You've done something with your hands. There's a reason why people that have very externally out of control jobs, things where there's other factors that they can't control, it's something that you can do that is you're totally in control. I decide where I'm going to do it. I decide when I'm going to do it. I get to sit here by myself. It sounds crazy. You say it to like people of a certain age, but you're like, it was a huge advantage working in certain jobs because you got more breaks.
Yeah.
Like I worked in the restaurant industry, and I would make fun of the 2 people that didn't smoke. So I was like, oh, so you get 20 minutes off, and because the manager smokes, he understands that we need 5 minutes every 25 to 35
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, that's true. You didn't get breaks for other addictions.
Absolutely
Bullshit.
not. And
Yeah.
and in the restaurant industry, people are taking breaks for other addictions. They're just not allowed in the same way.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, look, I cooked in a restaurant and we had various different vegetables or fruits that were carved into a bowl with weed in it in the walk-in freezer. That you'd just be like, all right, we gotta go check if we have any trout, and then you'd be in there and come out high and fuck up some tickets, make the wrong special.
I mean, I wish it was weed. I knew a guy that smoked crack in the staff bathroom of a restaurant in Montreal. I have a bit about this, but I was the one who elected to have to fire him because I was the tallest, and they were genuinely concerned he was going to go nuts because he was on crack. But the head chef Ruben, and I'll never forget this, literally stood in the kitchen with an unlit Marlboro or an unlit Benson and Hedges menthol just sticking out of his mouth. Just went, "Crackheads won't hit you, but if he's got something sharp, he might stab you. Good luck." And I was just like, great. And yeah.
Who's smoking crack at a restaurant? I can't think of a worse drug to smoke at a restaurant.
His name was Mike. I can tell you why. He said, I was going through a divorce. Speaking of smoking, I gave him 2 cigarettes. Walked out. That restaurant really ran on cigarette smoking. I also nearly fought my boss, and that was calmed down because he gave me a cigarette and I just took his pack of cigarettes. I remember that. I took his pack of cigarettes, smoked 3 of them, and then gave them back. Real passive aggressive 2008 energy.
But we smoked weed because like once you'd have all the tickets up there, it would like calm down, but crack would, no matter what position you have at a restaurant, dishwasher, server, kitchen, crack would suck. Like in a restaurant,
Forrest, I have to say, I think you're applying slightly too much logic to, as someone who knew Mike and worked with him a lot, logic was not an issue he was burdened with. It was purely, what are we doing? What's for breakfast? Cracks for breakfast. You got to go to work. And in his crackhead logic, which I have to respect, he could not understand why he was being fired. I felt like smoking crack today. I got crack. I came to work. I was on time, and I'm getting dishes out. And also, and this was the best part, I'm not smoking the crack in the main bathroom. I'm doing it in the staff room.
True. Yeah, good point. Mike does have some good logic there. Yeah.
You're wrong, but you're not as wrong as you think you are.
Crack smells too. Smells really
very
weird.
It smells like who burnt the candy.
Yeah. It's like really. I've never smoked crack, full disclosure, but I had friends that smoked crack in the house I was living in. I had a friend that my roommate had taken an old Corona bottle and very carefully with a little Dremel carved a hole into it and made it into a bong. Right?
Oh my God.
He spent like hours on it so he wouldn't crack the Corona bottle. Hours just sitting there. Then he got a hole in there and he put like a little stem in there. And it was this accomplishment of this Corona bottle to smoke weed out of. And some guy just came and threw a crack rock in it. Because to be fair, it looked like a great crack bong too. Clear bottle. Smoked crack in it and then just glazed it with crack. It was like ruined. It's like, well, we're not smoking out of the crack bottle now. It's gross. And you could just smell it. I remember that I don't smoke crack. I've only smelled it a couple times, and I can smell it right now. We're talking about it. It's disgusting.
It is one of my favorite factors. If you're ever in Winnipeg, Manitoba, just walk to the river. The river. So many people smoke crack by that river. It just always perpetually smells like crack.
Crack season. It's the cherry blossoms and crack. Yeah.
And I remember, I will never forget this. This is such a burn of the time around the time when I had to fire Mike for smoking crack. I remember a crackhead gave us advice about how to make our weed last longer. We were walking by a nightclub in Montreal, a homeless crackhead, crack pipe in hand, and he went, "Hey, my man, you smoking weed? Let me get you a piece of advice." And he pointed at the ground where there were little baggies, like people spent Coke baggies, and he went, "Take your bud, shake it up in one of those baggies. They call that chronic. You'll be hallucinating and living your life." And I have to say, you shouldn't take advice from those kind of people, but we did. And then we did do that. Not with those bags. We went and got other of our roommates had a bit of a powder problem, and so we should put our weed in that. And let me say this, best high I've ever had. It's one of those ones where I did it a certain amount of times, then I went, we leave this here because this is too fun. Yeah. And I know myself. The nice thing about, I heard someone say this about cigarette smoking, to bring it back to that, which is cigarettes are an interesting gateway drug in that they're a gateway to a closed garden. In that you immediately realize how susceptible to addiction you are, if you have some self-awareness when you start smoking cigarettes, because if you take to them, you're immediately like, okay, I got a like you're immediately like, we need to budget for these. This is something that we have to have. You're just aware of it right away. And I was able to apply that to be like, I am capable of getting uber addicted to stuff. I got very quickly addicted to cigarettes. Let's be aware of that as we move through all other intoxicants. And that's something that I entered in with like boozing, drugs, all of that sort of stuff. I went in very much eyes open. So I had some rules of like, I never drank. I don't drink anymore. It's more sort of a health thing.
Did you have like did you ever have like there was an addiction kind of stuff?
I was never addicted to alcohol. I never enjoyed alcohol. Here's what I enjoyed. This is how I was able to quit booze so easily. Here's what I liked doing. I liked having a reason to stand outside of a business and smoke 15 cigarettes. And if you're having 3 beers, you can do that. But I have, for the life of me, no idea how people drink without smoking. Like, it's like, okay, so it would be like, here's the dip. And I'm like, where are the chips for me dipping in the dip? And it's like, no more chips. And I'm like, well, I'm not just having dip. That's fucking mental.
Interesting. Yeah. So
like, I was like, the part of the thing that led me to, I didn't want to get into it, but I'll get into it. The part of the reason why I stopped drinking was a friend of mine drank himself to death. He had a drinking problem.
Yeah.
And when you see the end stage of what that genre of liquid can do to a human being, I just couldn't separate. Like, I couldn't be like, let's have a Mai Tai. Like, it just sort of, it fell out of my head. That said, his funeral was the last time I got hammered, and it was the greatest use of alcohol I've ever had in my entire life. Like, wept, cried in the arms of people. Like, everyone could just sort of like get it out. It was in this, just like this weird appointed bar in Camden in London. I saw a mutual friend of ours, JJ Whitehead, break down, which is like, the man he's like knowing a puppy dog. So him having sad emotions was one of the most brutal, like, just like, well, end the world. If this man is sad, no one needs happiness. And I remember being like, I kept being like, I really want a cigarette. And it had been the first time in about a year or two I'd wanted a cigarette at that point. And I was like, yeah, booze sucks without this. I'm out.
Yeah. I know. I didn't know that person, but I know JJ, and I remember when that happened, and I was on the road with him, I think, when it happened. And it was, I remember him being really upset. I remember like living that person's death peripherally through friends, So yeah. And it seemed rough. So
absolutely. Yeah. Also in class, I remember because you guys were somewhere weird on the road because he had to take so many connecting flights to get to London. Like, I remember, like, I like flew in and he was still on a journey for like another day. And I was like, where are you? And he's like, I'm connecting through Fairbanks, Alaska. Then I got to meet a man with a chopper. He's going to get me to Moscow. And from there I can walk. And it's like,
I don't remember where we were, but I just distinctly remember him getting off stage and just being like upset, like just back in the green room and just, being emotional. And so,
dude, it was that event was so interesting because it sorted all of these people in my life of like, who is helpful in this moment and who is a fucking liability. And like, for anyone who's ever had someone like a big person in a friend group or a big person in a family pass away, which I'm sure Forrest has been unluckily blessed with, is a bunch of people get appointed as kind of like press secretaries. And I was one of them, in that I was fielding all the calls from comedians so the family didn't have to. And that, speaking of, I quit smoking in October of 2020. How I did it was I smoked 14 cigarettes back to back in front of Newark Airport, and then immediately got on an airplane feeling like I was going to throw up my own asshole, and just literally sat on the plane and continually was like, remember this feeling. This is the feeling you get from smoking. Not smoking will not give you this feeling. And I held on to that thought. And when I landed at LAX, my tradition always at LAX was you bang out. I was waiting for a bag. You go stand outside and you can smoke 2 cigarettes and look at the luggage carousel. And I literally went, stand by that luggage carousel, grab your bag and get the fuck out of here. And that's exactly what I did. And I bring that up to only say is when that person died was the first time I remember thinking, shouldn't I want to smoke as a relief of this pain? And it didn't come. Like, I never had that craving for something that was so big and impactful. It was the first sort of moment where I'm like, oh, I have overcome needing that crutch. And it was 2 and a bit years later, and a lot of therapy and a lot of like understanding that the emotions I'm feeling will not be helped by going and smoking a cigarette. All I'm doing is giving myself something that hurts for 5 minutes, so I'm distracted from that pain, but it's not going to, one's not going to fix the other. And that was a hugely big moment. I wish my friend could have lived and I didn't have to experience that through that, but I always
Yeah.
remember being like, all right, I can get through.
But that's a really, so you stopped right then? That was when you stopped? Like you just.
I stopped October of 2020, and then it was literally and I tried to stop so many times. I stopped for 6 months in 2018 and was just white knuckling it the whole time until I got to the Edinburgh Festival. And then I was stood next to my agent at the time who was rolling a cigarette. And I said, give me a cigarette. And she went, you quit. And I went, until 30 seconds ago. And I have unquit. And then she went, okay. And then I started, and literally it was the funniest thing because there were 5 people there that had all sort of quit around the same time as me. And literally I went, and literally the other 4 were like, all right, good. Okay. Yep. We were waiting for someone to yell time. And it's been yelled.
Perfectly fine because it's cigarettes, right? It was like booze or Coke or heroin or something like that. You'd be like, all right, yeah, I'm not quitting anymore. And people would be like, all right, I guess I'll just give you some drugs. Or that would never happen, But I think that it's like really emotional maturity, though, is what you got to give yourself credit for, because especially with cigarettes, there's all of these mechanisms that people, gum, vaping, patches, things like that, and a lot of times people will be like, well, I need to quit, so I'm going to quit, but you're not ready because you didn't have that moment like you had at the baggage carousel where you're telling yourself, this is the reaction to what's going on in my life, not just I need to quit,
And it was also, I'd quit so many times that I knew what the traps were. I knew what I was what I was running from, and how to just not just be like, well, who cares? It's fine. It was also that thing of like, I lived in England for 6 years. A huge amount of me living in England wasn't fun. It was a really hard place to live. People were shitty. It was starting over my life again for at that point, 3rd time. And so cigarettes were such a aid. And then it was like a thing to do. Like, I don't know how many people have ever like moved to a new country or moved to a new city, but it's the first year's really fucking hard. You don't, like, the person that you met that is your friend on day 2, that technically speaking is your best friend in that city. So it's just very lonely making. But something like cigarettes, it gives you a break from a party where you're trying to socialize. It gives you a reprieve. It gives you a group of people that you can talk to, like, oh, he smokes too, okay, something, you know what I mean? It's all that sort of stuff. And then it's just moving to LA and being like, look, it's nice outside. You don't need that cigarette.
But I think, that's important to know, because especially with something like cigarettes that is, again, very normalized also, is, the government will realize, like, hey, people shouldn't be smoking. This kills a lot of people each year. So I think in other countries they let them put gross pictures of like a fetus or something that wasn't formed correctly because of smoking, or a lung that's black, or they, I was in Australia last year, and I think cigarettes cost $20 a pack now or something like that.
Oh, buddy, no. It is way more than that. I think they are, because you have to remember, cigarettes go up by $5 or $6 every 6 months. Because
I was there shooting this TV show, the Jim Jeffries and Friends, and I'd say half the comics smoked. They'd all be back on the loading dock and stuff like that where we're shooting, and bumming a cigarette there was like legit expense. Like I got these. It's like they're like $3 a piece, at that point. And but people were still smoking it, and that's the point I'm making. Is like, they can do all they want. They can make them more expensive. They can put disgusting pictures on the side of them. They can have whatever commercials they want. But in the end, it still has to be this like emotional, like, for lack of a better word, maturity, that you are realizing why you do this, and you're realizing the changes you can make so that stops. Not just like, I need to quit, So
the method behind the Australian madness of how expensive cigarettes are is they actually are going, we're not getting back the generation that smoke. We're not stopping the people that have been smoking for 20 years. They're going to smoke for the rest of their lives and die. What we're doing is we're drawing a line in the sand. So we're stopping cigarettes being a thing for younger people.
Mm.
So it's what it specifically was their socialized healthcare system was under such a burden because so many people in Australia were smoking, and it's like so far away, all of that sort of stuff, that everything has to be put on boats in terms of like medical equipment, all that. So it's XYZ more expensive. And they just went, we need this to end in our society. So it's, I think you're of a certain age now, you're not legally allowed to buy cigarettes ever. I think it's if you're 13 or 14 right now in Australia,
Oh yeah.
you'll never be allowed to buy cigarettes. And by the time they're 18, like a high-end cigarette pack of cigarettes can cost as much as $45 or $50 in Australia.
Yep.
That's unjustifiable. Like,
Yeah.
that's just like, you're crazy.
And
And
people
so,
get
like,
upset because they're like, oh, they call it, our friend Amos, so we both know he's nanny state. He always like, Australia's a nanny state. And I'm like, yeah, but I feel like the letting humans do whatever the fuck they want is overrated. I feel like sometimes we need things in place. And it's like seatbelts, for instance. They were like, we're going to have to pass a law where we make people wear seatbelts. And then more people were living through car accidents. And people were still upset about that. The government can tell me to wear a seatbelt. And it's like, well, if that's what it took to save lives, I guess. But with cigarettes, I look at cigarettes sometimes because I never smoke cigarettes. I'm like, oh, is this something we should just make illegal? And I'm sure there's tons of pushback on that. I'm like, you can't have the government making all these things illegal. But what is the benefit of cigarettes? There's there one benefit that I'm missing? I don't think.
So nicotine is a mental stimulant. Just buy a Zyn or vape or do any of the other thing. Chew nicotine gum. It's a mental stimulant.
Yeah.
Like it is in the way of like you like zing, you hone in for a second, but it's not a nanny state. It's literally the state being like, we as this country are saying, if you want to live here, this is how much cigarettes cost, and we've legislated that, and you voted for us. If you don't like that, go somewhere else. Like, that's how, like, I'm Canadian. Canada runs on tobacco. Like, no one wants to talk about it. Canada exports so much tobacco. Huge tobacco companies are based in Canada. Huge portions of Ontario until very recently were all tobacco fields. One of the best prime ministers in the history of Canada, Jean Chrétien, was elected because he literally just went, I will make cigarettes $1 cheaper. And they were like, this man knows how to win. And Canada also has had to like be pioneering in how to develop and treat and detect heart disease because of the amount of people that like it. There was a smoking section in my high school in the early 2000s, and people think I am fucking joking. It was so allowed. It was so de rigueur, not a big deal. The only reason my mom cared was I was born premature, so I had like some lung problems, but it was just not anything anyone cared about. It was the reason why the state has had to intercede in these countries is because it got so ingrained in just a thing that humans are allowed to do that it costs billions of dollars to treat. And we want to be able to, these governments want to be able to provide healthcare to their citizens. That's why they do it. But it's mental how allowed it was. And then they slowly phased it out. But like when I went to college in French Canada, and the grocery store in my neighborhood was so old school, you could smoke in the grocery store, just not near the produce. You just smoked at the top and bottom of all the aisles.
What?
Yeah.
Smoking grocery stores?
Smoking grocery store. You weren't
by the way,
allowed, but they did. Like it was like,
oh, okay. But I was just thinking about this, and for younger people that have no clue about this, that used to be able to smoke on airplanes. And it was hilarious because there was a smoking section and a non-smoking section.
First of all, still can. There's a bunch of airlines, and like this is a West versus East. You go into Eastern Europe, those domestic airlines, light them up, boys. Oh my god!
Yeah, you know what? Now that I think about that, I famously did this flight I've talked about on podcasts before with Jim, where we had to get from somewhere, and I want to say it was Norway or Sweden, and we had to get to Israel, and the only way to do that was to take a Romanian airline, connect through Bucharest, and I do remember there being ashtrays on that plane in the armrest, which I remember as a kid, there being ashtrays. And I remember, I think there were some people smoking on the airplane, which is bananas because I remember I went to visit my father in Germany when I was 12, and I flew by myself on Lufthansa. I think it was Lufthansa or something. And they had a smoking section. Germans just smoke.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in the smoking section, sitting in the smoking section, and there was no seats back in the non-smoking section. So they moved me because they were like, why is this kid sitting in the smoking section? I got bumped to first class, which was pretty dope for the way there. But it's just crazy because they're like, this row is smoking, this row is not smoking. And they're like, it was just seat back there. Plus, it's an airplane. You should want no smoking just in case, I don't know, you need to detect if something's burning in an airplane.
I mean, like Germany is so fascinating, and Germany has, in the Germans like have the stereotype of they're known for rules, but what it is they want to know where they can do stuff. And so like I think the rule in Berlin is if you're on the second floor, you smoke in the bars, but it's like but like my God, Germany is the funniest thing in the entire world in that it's like I was in a cafe and I just was holding a pack of cigarettes and the guy was like, "You want to smoke?" Back patio. And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's called the back patio." And it was just a room with one window in the roof. And he's like, "Yeah, you can smoke there." And I'm like, "This is fucking ridiculous." Like it's just
The smoker boxes at the airports, those are funny too.
Oh my God.
Just
So
like go in that disgusting fucking room.
You say that. I was someone who toured Europe for 6 years on a fucking budget because goddamn were those promoters unscrupulous where it's like, we agreed to €500. I'm only giving you 2. Well, fuck you. Like it just, I don't want to spend any more time in this guy's weird flat. I'm spending the next 8 hours at the airport. Let's smoke cigarettes in that little booth.
You just went in there without cigarettes, just breathed in.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like it was just, it's one of those things where I regret it because I don't want to have health complications later in life, but it also was like, it also was a bit of an intoxicant in terms of helping in this business. And that the amount of people I met because I had cigarettes and they went, "Oh, can I have one?" Get to talking, like just for laughs as a festival, ran on all of those executives from LA lying to themselves about whether or not they smoke cigarettes. Holy shit. Like the entire executive branch of Comedy Central were smoking my butts in 2015.
My mom smoked cigarettes till the day she died, and she had cancer. And she had
smoking through cancer is wild. Can I just
say? Oh yeah, she had a form of blood cancer called multiple myeloma, and she was really embarrassed by the fact that she smoked, but she just said it was something she couldn't kick, or she had a lot of stress in her life, as anyone would with cancer, but there was other factors too, and she just never did, and she kind of just made peace with it and said, though, like, whatever, this is what I've chosen to do. I made it this far. We're going to do it, this kind of thing. And my mom was everything else, like the amount of water she drank, different organic tinctures that she would take and all these things and stuff. But I just remember thinking about like how difficult it must be to kick smoking if my mom, who in every other way lived her life, I mean, healthy, except for this, it was crazy and stuff. And she'd be embarrassed by it sometimes. Like we would be at the hospital and she would, with an IV thing, go out and smoke a cigarette, like in the thing, and she'd be like, "Oh, people are gonna look at me and judge me." I'm like, whatever, just do your thing, They don't know your life, but it's crazy. That's how addictive cigarettes are.
It's also, I know what she was doing. It's that trade-off. I'm a workout freak, and I would literally, I can't find the photo. I wanted to find it for this, but I can't find it. But a friend of mine papped me because I literally at the gym, I would do like 45 minutes of weights, go outside, smoke 2 cigarettes, go back in and do cardio. Like I was nuts. I used to go on like, especially in LA, 4-hour bike rides, like literally bike from Koreatown to Hermosa Beach and back. Yeah. And the amount of times I was like biking in the middle of the night down to Venice Beach Boulevard, just arms crossed over my chest, smoking a cigarette and biking are innumerable. It was one of my great pleasures, and it's the most contradictory, stupid thing you could be doing.
And do you felt the difference when you stopped smoking, your lungs? And
I feel the difference there. I feel lungs, like mood, eyes, like you stink less. There's a bunch of things. Like I would wear jeans once and then wash them, all that sort of stuff. Like it was crazy.
When I would if I would be in a casino, where California, great thing about California and gambling casinos, you can't smoke in them, so nice. But anywhere else, you come back and your clothes smell like smoke, and I'm like, oh, I don't even fucking smoke, and then I'd have my throat would be dry and stuff like that. But do you with the smoking, do you look at people that smoke now like in a different way? Do you look at them with like disgust or pity, or what do you know?
I literally just go, if they want to quit, they'll be able to quit. If people are quitting and like that are friends of mine, I always sort of reach out and be like, hey, this is what I did. No one loved smoking more than me. But I also think with all addictions, judgment is not going to get you anywhere, and it is down to the person. It is a symptom of a larger problem. Mine was I was not appropriately dealing with very acute anxiety that I then had to actually deal with. I was also ended up going through divorce and a bunch of other things that precipitated a lot more self-awareness. But in the end, if you're quitting smoking, you're having difficulty quitting smoking, it's not necessary. I don't think it's because you're weak-willed. It's the thing that is causing you to think that cigarettes are a good idea is still very much a part of your life, and you need to address that, and then away you go. The other thing that I did when I quit that finally took was I did a 9-day juice cleanse. Like I literally ate nothing but fresh juice. It was COVID, so I had the time. And I think the reason why I did that was it was also my body was in such an uproar from everything else. I didn't notice that I wanted to quit smoking. And also, like, it was at the end of a relationship. It was the end of a marriage. There was a bunch of stuff where I was just like, I need a change in my life. And if you're feeling that, like, go big with it. People go, oh, one step at a time. Sometimes it's like, no, do 9 days of a juice cleanse while quitting smoking. You will be such an asshole. But by the end of it, you'll be like, all right, well, like I feel better because I've eaten some grapes and I've shit my whole self out. My whole self is shit and it's out of my body now.
Juice cleanse. I've never done a juice cleanse. I've done a lot of things, but
I really enjoyed it. It's the weirdest first 2 days because you just don't. Your body's like, what the hell? This is what we're getting, and then you have a Duke. You do the job so intensely that you're like, what the hell was that? And then there's just a few days of that, and then at the end of it, you're just like, I feel a lot better, but you feel crazy, crazy.
yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about like I'm worried about this. Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest doing it if you've got roommates. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where you're like, look, I got a bit of a quiet week. Let's get nuts.
That's what I'm saying. You said during COVID, if you have shit to do, if you got some presentations or like
Absolutely not.
like as a comic, if you had like 10 sets in like the next 2 weeks, seems like
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do a set because the thing is your asshole is a real weapon in that state, and there is almost no time because you literally you're just full of liquid. So suddenly you've never had to pee more in your entire life.
Yeah. Interesting. So anxiety, how do you deal with anxiety now that you don't smoke?
I smoke crack. It's one of those things where I actually address it. It's one of those things where I try and attempt a mindfulness practice. So it's one of those things where it's like I attempt to.
You don't have to say it in that tone. It's funny.
I do have to say it in that tone. I hate that it works. Like I hate it. Like I want to be. I'll tell you what I did. I was a fucking man. But it's one of those little things where it's like, make an accounting in my mind. What are the things you're actually afraid of in this moment? What are the things you can control? What are the things you can't control? Attempt to release the things that I can't control and be a part of the things that I can control is what I do. Yeah. I still occasionally will smoke marijuana. The amount of marijuana I'm smoking is like it's about 2 joints a day at night to sort of relax from the day. Mm-hmm. It's probably not the best, but from where I was to where I am, I'm fine with it. It's also like nothing is more fucking irritating to me than people who have never, like I have a bunch of friends that are like, I socially smoke. What you do, you just replaced your addiction with another addiction. And I have to be like, well, no, I was having 20 tar-filled bad boys a day.
Yeah.
Or now I'm having like like 0.03 of a gram of weed and not always finishing it. It's not the same. We're not the same. This is not the same. And
I think it just goes back to more of the mental state of addiction, and that's what it is in the end. I mean, there's always a physical component to it, no matter what it is. You're smoking cigarettes, you're you're drinking, you're doing drugs. I mean, with gambling, it's the process of going to the play. Well, now you can do it on your phone, but there's still just like it's the process of that people focus on a lot of times. But really, it's all comes down to: are you in a better place, like mentally, or in a better place where a quieter place, like serenity is always a word that people use, like with regards to addiction. And so That's this whole thing that people like to do online where they judge people about, or that who gives a fuck, it doesn't matter. You don't have an answer to anybody but yourself, and you're in a better place,
Completely. It's
Yeah.
also that thing of, you understand, if you are someone who is coming out of any sort of addictive behavior, the people that are going, actually what you should be, they're talking to themselves
Yeah.
because they are very fucking angry. You have done something, because by taking action, it is one less person that they can point to, go, see, they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those things where it's why I think always people that it's why LA comedy always gets a lot of shit, is because of the amount of people that have come to LA. LA is just a hard place to do show business. It's so big. You're competing with literal, it's down to you or Mel Brooks. So it's like, well, I think Mel's going to get it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I think people get very angry at people that just stay and scrap it out in LA, because it's saying to them, you couldn't, you had to move somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
even people in New York are like, fucking LA. And I'm like, what's your fucking issue? What's your problem? You're fine.
Yeah, I never get that when people in New York always want to like shit on, like, comedy wise, especially like the LA scene or being in LA, and I'm like, all right, like I like it here. It's like you can like New York better, but this whole thing about the sets and this and that, and it's like, whatever. Like,
I mean, I made an error once, which I was stood in front of the cellar and a bunch of people were like, LA comedy sucks. And I was like, yeah, let's all move to New York where we can all fucking wear a jacket and be angry about croissants. And then I looked up and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, because everyone was in a blazer, and it was like three guys that all are like, and I was like, I don't need to find, like, hey, I just want to let you know, no one else in the world knows anything about Puerto Rican stereotypes. And I don't understand why in New York, every fucking second comedian is like, and these Puerto Ricans. I'm just like, what?
Yeah. I don't know what the numbers are, but there are a lot of really good comedians in New York. But there are also a lot of subpar comedians in New York.
Correct.
And vice versa. There are a lot of good comedians in LA, and there are a lot of subpar comedians in LA. There are no good comedians in Austin, however. No, I'm just kidding.
Got him. What I'm enjoying,
I don't know if comedy, like,
I don't know if you've twigged this, but there's now a Houston v. Austin rift, and I'm just like, this is what I like about specifically stand-ups.
Wait, for comedy there is?
Yeah. Stand-ups cannot just let a nice thing happen. Hey, this guy has moved to a new scene. He's created another place where people can make a living doing this art form. Isn't that great? Fuck Austin, Houston forever. And you're just like, yeah.
Houston, Austin is hilarious. I didn't know there was a...
I love it. Isn't it the best? Because it's like, flood zone versus place that's way too hot. Like, it's just like, this is so stupid.
Yeah, just live your lives, people. All right, cool. Anything else? You said some good things already, but anything else you'd say to anybody that's like struggling out there?
Here's what I would say is, if you want to quit. Don't tell anyone. Just do it. Just don't tell anyone. Do it for you, and do it for you. And also, like, AA and all those programs can get pretty ridiculous, but it is important to have a community, and it is important to have fellowship. Human beings, especially when we're doing things transitionally, thrive better if there are people to speak to about it. And and it's funny, that's not how I operate, but I realize I'm just a weird loner.
Mm-hmm.
But other people do like foster and get community from that stuff, and I think it's really important. And I will preach mindfulness. If you don't know what mindfulness is, find a bald woman who's got a lot of things that go boom, and she can explain it to you. But it's basically like, be in the moment, and what that actually means, which is every once in a while, especially in a time of social media and all these different impulses and inputs coming at us, find a way to just be on a walk. As hippy dippy as that sounds, just be on a walk. Just go for a walk for 5 minutes, no headphones, and you'll be shocked how much better you feel. Shocked.
I'm proud of you for just saying mindfulness without any affectation on it.
I'm trying. It was very hard, Forrest. There's something about you. You're like if Buddha was from Florida. You know what I mean? It's like, you want to be centered, and we have jalapeno poppers. And you're like, holy shit, enlightenment and jalapeno poppers?
Come on, they have jalapeno poppers everywhere. Come on. John, thanks for being here. That was awesome. And like I said, follow him, watch his comedy. The John Hastings everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, whatever. His website. He's got tons of like 8 specials, he said, in the last 10 months on YouTube. That's hours of entertainment, and then listening to his podcast to the wrestling review. Did I get that right?
It's the wrestler review. Get it right, Forrest, you son of a bitch.
As I was saying it, I was like stalling to try and get it in my brain. I'm like, yeah. Well, is there a wrestling review too, or is it just wrestler review?
Just
like
the wrestler review.
Yeah. I'm assuming you talk about wrestling.
Weirdly, no. It's a feminist podcast. No, we talk about wrestling. It's if you're thinking, hey, I want to hear two guys talk about wrestling and come, the wrestler review is for you. Mostly come.
Well, all right. You lost me at come, but okay.
Oh, boo, Forrest. Come on.
Mindfulness.
You're in the woods. There's also you're surrounded in cum. What do you think photosynthesis is?
All right, we're not going to go through this. Tree cum, is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Okay. I think the sap would be, which is part of photosynthesis, if that's what you're going
pre-cum,
for.
where I come from. As a Canadian, I put your pre-cum on my waffles. That's what I say. No one likes
this. Is all being edited out.
It is not. Do not. If you edit this, you do not have the right to use my voice.
All right, John. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, brother. Speak to you soon.
Thanks again to John Hastings for being here, and to Slayton Shaw. That was an interesting episode. I really did not think I'd be doing an episode about cigarettes ever when I started this podcast, but here we are. Pretty early on, did one. I got a lot of messages about cigarettes, and what I said, I really believe that I just didn't think about it in the same terms of an addiction as I did, gambling, drugs, alcohol, any of that. And all the same things apply. Just the way it affects your life, the way it changes your behavior, the way you're covering up for different emotional issues, psychological issues, the withdrawal symptoms, all that kind of stuff. It's all there. Yeah. By the way, I mentioned when I was talking to John, I said, oh yeah, not like somebody eating rocks. That's not a real addiction. You know what? That isn't everything. If you're doing something repeatedly like that, and it is affecting your life negatively, which I'm sure eating rocks affects your life negatively, then yeah, it's an addiction, and you're covering up, or you're supplementing or adding that into your life for some reason. Something is affecting you to make you do that. I guess that would be the real shittiest of addictions. I always think gambling's the worst addiction. Eating rocks, or a person that's drinking gasoline, and that's got to be the shittiest one, because not only is it seem really destructive to either your teeth or your stomach or whatever, it's no friends. There's no 12-step meeting for eating rocks. You can't hang out and be like, oh, this guy knows what I'm talking about. He eats pebbles. So hats off to anybody struggling with anything. And we made that point on the one with Justin Foster, with the guy riding the bike. Definitely an addiction. So if you are feeling like you're going to harm yourself, suicide and crisis hotline in the U.S. is dial 988. In Canada, it's 988. United Kingdom, 0800-689-5652. Australia, Lifeline, 131114. Finland, 09-2525-0111. And the international helpline in Germany is 030-4401-0607. There's a Wikipedia page called The List of Suicide Crisis Lines that has a list of crisis and helplines by country on there. If you want to call this show, do not do that. Don't call this show as a suicide crisis hotline. No one's going to pick up. It's going to be a voicemail. And there's not going to be any experts on the other end of it. But if you do want to call this show, the phone number is 305+1 for the country code, America. And number 1, 305-563-7264 or 305-JOE-RANG. Thanks for being here for another episode. I'll see you guys or talk to you guys next week.